All right, sounds like we're going to go without a mic tonight, so we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Kevin Holt, I'm an assistant principal up here at the high school. I just want to take an opportunity to thank you for coming out to learn a little bit more. We're just kind of doing this as a community event. We understand that cell phones are very much a reality in the world we live in. I've got mine on my hip every day, and we're trying to work with our students and, by extension, you guys on how we can kind of keep kids safe when they're using their devices and things like that. Brian basically has some expertise in this area, and so we just said, hey, why don't you come on up and do a night. We are, a couple things just to be aware of, we are recording it through MTCO, so we're going to do that via the Digimax replay, like the Redbird replay, so it'll play there, and then we also hope to get a copy that we'll post on our website. In the technology area, on our website we have a parent tab with technology that we're constantly building on. We've got a few resources there. The ones you picked up out there are also up there, so if you lose it on your way home, not that parents would ever do that, right? But if you ever lose it if you lose it, you can go and get it there, and then we hope to have the video of tonight as a refresher if you feel like you need it at any point. All right? So Brian's going to take over, and thanks again for coming.
I just wanted to start off by welcoming you guys tonight, this evening, coming to Metamora Township High School. I appreciate you guys taking the time. I know it's busy schedules, holidays coming up, and I just want to tell you I appreciate that. Just a little background on myself. I've owned and operated 309 Technologies locally in Metamora for about 4 years now. Prior to that, I owned and operated East Peoria Computer Works in East Peoria, Illinois for roughly 9 years. Moved to Metamora, my business to Metamora roughly about 4 years ago because I live in Metamora and I got tired of driving back and forth to East Peoria. That's my big reason why. And then I've got kids that are actually in activities and things, so it just made it a lot easier for myself, and I was lucky enough to be able to do that. I'd like to take a moment and just basically explain that one of the biggest things for myself in this field is it's constantly evolving. And when I say constantly evolving, I spoke at an event about 2 years ago called Building Better Moms in Washington. At that time when I spoke, there were a lot of new, fresh apps. The apps that I'm going to talk about this evening, there's 5 specifically. 3 of them didn't exist. One of them was nowhere on the radar. So one of the big benefits. Better? Okay. But that was one of the big things that I wanted to make sure that people were aware of, that this is just constantly evolving. There's never a time where I've seen an app stay and just continue to grow. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, they're around, they're predominant, but if you talk to kids, Facebook's, blatant is just for old people. That's what I always hear when I talk about Facebook, is it's for old people. So Instagram was bought by Facebook, WhatsApp was bought by Facebook. So what you're finding is the bigger companies that are out there that do social media are now buying up these smaller companies as they find that younger kids are starting to use them. So they're tied in seamlessly. It's just a lot of times the kids don't realize it, because if they knew they were tied to Facebook, a lot of them probably wouldn't use it. It's kind of the way that I look at it. A lot of what I'm going to be talking about this evening will be through videos. After I do the videos, I'm just going to follow up and kind of step by step just kind of explain to you what the videos are about before and after. And at the end, I'll be more than happy to answer some questions if you guys have questions. If I can't answer them this evening, I've got my cards available up here, and I'd be more than happy to email you back once I do get the information if it's a question I can't answer. Again, thank you for showing up. So all of us have seen this. Kids sitting around, not even talking to each other. Every one of them's on an app or on their phone or their tablet. They get older, so they sit around in bigger groups. Then they get into high school. They're sitting around in groups again. There's a name for these kids. We call them screenagers, because they're constantly in their screens. That's basically where they live. One of the big things about that is it's really difficult to sit there and have a conversation with your child, because they're constantly in their app, they're in their phone, and it's their world. We interact with our phones every day, but we just don't interact in the ways that they interact with their devices. It's just they've grown accustomed to them being a part of their everyday life. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show a couple apps here I'm going to ask a couple questions just by apps to see if you guys can actually tell me what the app is by the icon, and see if you guys can even identify some of the apps that are out there that are known to be bad apps that you could actually just look at your phone and be able to tell that your son or daughter has an app on there that they shouldn't have on there. This is one of the big things that I talk about. I kind of went around and asked a bunch of freshmen, sophomore, and junior and senior kids, how much time do you spend on social media? The biggest thing that I heard more than anything was 6 to 7 hours. That's from the time they get up in the morning to the time they go to bed at night. The national average is 8 to 9 hours. That's for high school kids. If you look, the thing that threw me off more than anything when I went through this, and maybe it was a number of students that I actually asked, but it looks like freshmen and senior actually do a lot more activity on social media than sophomores and juniors, and I couldn't figure out if there's a correlation between that or if it's just the people that I asked individually were just kind of skewed when I asked those questions. But it's just interesting to just realize that your kids are spending that much time on their phones, whether it be in the morning, at school, after school, in the evenings, but they are spending that much time. That's a lot of time, and that's up almost 3 hours over the last 2 years. This is what the kids complain about all the time on their phone because they're on their phone every 7 to 8 hours. So if you constantly are hearing your kids talk about my battery is dead on my device and they're carrying around the little lipstick chargers or the charging bricks in their devices because they can't make it through a day without their battery dying, it's because they're spending that 7 to 8 hours every day on their device. Can anybody name this app? After School app, correct. The After School app has been kind of a bane to people's existence for the last couple of years, and it's gotten worse, and in some cases a little better, but not very much. What's the age that you have to be in order to download this app, according to the developer of the actual app? Anybody have 10, 11, 12, 15, 18? Anybody have a guess at all? 13. You have to be 17 to download it. When it originally came out 4 years ago, it was 12 and older. So I'll lead into this video with just you understanding that actually is what's talked about in this video, is the fact that app has changed and they now make it 17 plus, but it doesn't keep kids from downloading that are under the age of 17.
First of all, this is a new anonymous app similar to Yik Yak, Secret, Whisper, and Ask FM. It lets you post anonymously, as you can see on the right-hand side. The main distinguishing feature is that it creates a separate chat group for each school. Now, what's the main issue with this after-school app? Well, the app was launched on October 13th of 2014. It was targeted towards school students, so it was marketed 12 plus, 12 years old and older. Now, the problem with it is in 2 months, the app gained thousands of users, school students, and opponents, teachers, and parents. As you can see on the right-hand side, there's different schools. We're going to show you exactly how that works. Now, what's the main issue? Well, after a number of complaints, the app was temporarily unavailable in the mobile app stores until they changed the age restriction to 17 plus, which, my friends, it really means nothing, and I'll show you why. Now, the 17 plus age restriction makes the after school app even more controversial, and here's why. It's supposed to not be designed for kids under 17. However, it encourages kids to connect the app with any school they belong to, which could be middle school, high school, or anything else. Now, the issues for students and their parents. This is what some of the news are saying about it. There's a lot of cyberbullying, there's sexting, there's pornography, there's alcohol, tobacco, drug references. I hate to be a Debbie Downer here and be really negative, but there's a lot of negative stuff on this. Now, what are the issues for schools? Well, schools, people are talking about cutting, killing, guns, bomb threats, and this doesn't come from us. This comes from Forbes and research that we've done. Now, let me talk to you some issues for schools continued. One user in Michigan posted that he or she was bringing a gun to school, resulting in a police and FBI investigation. Thankfully, the threat wasn't credible. A similar threat occurred in Ohio, and this isn't going to stop. Now, since the launch, users from more than 14,000 different high schools, let me repeat that, 14,000 different high schools across the U.S. have already downloaded the app. So it's a good chance your kid's school has users on this app. Next, what can teachers and parents do to keep their kids safe? All right, first and foremost, This is really my biggest wish for you, is have a dialogue with your kids to see if they're using the app. That's number one, first and foremost. Talk with your kids. Number two, this will not work as well. Set an age restriction on your kid's phone, as the app is 17 plus. It shouldn't allow your younger kids to download, but I'll tell you what, that's the wrong way to go about this. Trying to restrict your kids doesn't seem to work as much as having a dialogue with them and teaching them about the right and wrong way to use social media.
Now, one of the things I cut out is the bottom app down there below, and the main reason is after talking to police, FBI, and other people that are in that genre, I found out that through setting up a bogus or fake account with the social media site, you are breaking a law. It's against the law because you're actually acting as one person when you're not that person. So I don't recommend setting up a fake account to just monitor or see what's going on at your school or high school, because there are repercussions that can come from that, both legally and through police as well. So just keep that in mind when a lot of times you hear, well, I set up an account and I monitor it because I'm acting as I'm somebody else. That can come back to haunt you later on if you do that. Anybody name this app? If you have any kids at all, this app is becoming hugely popular. What was it? No. Musical.ly. Musical.ly, yep. There's a lot of them out there, but Musical.ly is what it is. Musical.ly has become huge, popular for kids everywhere between the ages of like 4 years old all the way up to 18, 19, and into college. I'm going to go over a little bit about it in this video again and kind of touch base about what it is and how they're using it. It's not so much a messaging app or anything like that. It's how the app's being used and marketed and who is actually it's being marketed to. But first, how old do you have to be to download this app? 12 plus. And again, 12 plus, and there's kids that use it all the time that are 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. So this is going to go into a little bit about what Musical.ly is about and who they target.
Well, the company markets itself to your kids by saying, add music and effects to make fascinating videos. Share videos to friends in all of your networks. Music plus song effects, millions of free soundtracks. Time machine, turn your video into magic. Explore topics and find cool things happening around you. The Musical.ly app allows you to select from millions of songs or use music from your own device. It lets you create lip-sync videos to your favorite songs. And it lets you add video effects, filter, fast motion, slow motion, time-lapse, reverse, and other time machine effects that make the videos look really cool. Now, users of Musical.ly are called musers, M-users. The goal is to get likes from other musers and see how your music videos rank on the leaderboard, as you can see to the right. The duet feature is like a side-by-side video feature that creates a video that puts you side by side with another user's submission. But what does Musical.ly marketing say about this app? Well, they say use hot music to make fascinating videos, discover trends from around the world, easily create fun and amazing videos to impress your friends, and anyone can be an awesome singer. What is popular on Musical.ly? Well, lip-syncing pop songs, comedy parodies, and tutorials, and teens are having a blast putting together these videos of them performing. What do other parents say? Well, this parent says, warning, this app contains adult video content. After watching a lot of other videos that were on there by others, the majority of them were inappropriate and had suggestive language and dancing. This parent says, caution, very fun, but not for pre-teens or tweens. She says the big problem with her daughter is that a lot of the available music and sound bites contain all the very adult language and innuendos that you hear on the radio. So when her daughter was left to her own devices, she found that her 10-year-old lip-synced to suggestive lyrics she didn't even understand, and dancing to the gesturing the way a rock diva does, not the way that the mom wanted her spending her free time. Why should parents care? Well, even though this app is relatively new and hasn't received a whole lot of popular media attention, it is extremely popular with teens. There's a lot of mature language and sexual content in the songs that are popular in the app, and there is no way to filter out the content. Videos can contain mature situations. What can parents do? Well, first, remind your teen to keep each video light, bright, and polite. And inappropriate online activity, even under a fake username, can someday harm your student's reputation. Also, be sure to start an open and honest dialogue with your teen. That is the #1 way to protect them from these types of apps.
One of the things I just wanted to note is he was talking about that, and one of the mothers said her 10-year-old, it's a 12+ app. Why does your 10-year-old have an app that's for 12+? That's the first thing that came to me whenever I was actually recording some of these and going through and seeing some of the things that people were talking about on social media. Next app, anybody have any guesses as to what that little icon means? It's a hashtag and a smiley face. That's what I had somebody else tell me one time. GroupMe. Somebody got it. GroupMe. What do you think the age requirement is for GroupMe app? 17? It's 4. 4 years old. 4 years and older. So if you go to the App Store and you actually go in there and you have restrictions set on your device for 12 and under, or 16 or under, or 18 or under, an app that is set for 4-year-olds is a social media app for texting and gathering information. So here's a little bit about what GroupMe is, and I will tell you, GroupMe is owned by Microsoft now.
Well, GroupMe marketing says, make connections that count. Stay in touch with people who matter most. Everything in one place. Share important moments now and relive them anytime. Say more than words. Go ahead, fall in love with our exclusive emoji. The entire internet in your group, YouTube, Twitter, GIFs, you name it, you can send it. And works wherever you are, including the web at groupme.com. What is the GroupMe app? Well, GroupMe is a messaging app owned by Microsoft. Users can send group or private messages from their computer or phone using Wi-Fi. Users sign up using their Facebook, Microsoft Skype account, or their email address. What is the GroupMe app? Well, users are prompted to verify their phone number upon registration through a text message. GroupMe then asks the user to grant the app access to the contacts in their phone. Users can also start chatting with other GroupMe users nearby by granting the app access to their location. Anytime an app asks for contacts and location, it's definitely a red flag. Aside from basic messaging capabilities, the app offers emojis, both free and for purchase, and GIFs. Users can also create calendar events and invite their friends directly into the app, create polls, or send photos and videos. Why should parents care? Well, some students favor the GroupMe app because the content of a message isn't displayed when notifications pop up on their device. This feature makes it easy for students to hide negative behavior or content from their parents. Parents have also reported instances of kids using the app solely to bully other students. There is no way for users to delete old messages. Since activity from the GroupMe app doesn't show up in their parents' phone bill, some students use the app to hide their messaging activity. Animated GIFs are available on GroupMe and can showcase inappropriate content. The app has built-in features that allow users to search the web directly from the app. There is no way to moderate or filter that content. Users can enable geolocation, which encourages them to chat with strangers nearby. This feature can be very dangerous since predators use it to target victims in their area. Parents should be aware that within 10 minutes of our team verifying their phone number within GroupMe, they started to receive spam phone calls.
So one of the big things that I always tell everybody, if it starts asking for contacts and location, that's probably the scariest thing when you're a teenager, not understanding what geolocation is and that why they want your contacts. Most teenagers, most kids just click allow, allow, allow because they want to get into it. So that's one of the big red flags I always tell everybody to look for. When you look at that device, and if you're looking through the apps and the apps that are installed and you look through the permissions on a lot of the devices, it'll tell you if those particular apps have access to geolocation. That's probably the biggest thing that I tell everybody to turn off on their devices, because geolocation means they know where your child is at any given time. Just keep that in mind. This app, I just love when people look at it. Anybody name this app? It's the color that's on the screen right now. It's yellow. It's called the Yellow app. And anybody have an idea, first of all, even if you know what the app is, but let alone what the age requirement is for it? 13 plus is what it is. This is probably the most disturbing app that I found going through and looking at popular apps, because it's Tinder for teenagers. And if you know what Tinder is, it's a dating app.
Well, Yellow App Marketing says, make friends, swipe right to like, left to pass. New friend if it's a mutual like. Talk, have great conversations. What is the Yellow app? Well, nicknamed the Tinder for Snapchat and Tinder for Teens, Yellow is an app that markets itself as a way to make new friends. Users who sign up for Yellow are prompted to provide their name, birthday, gender, and an answer to the question, are you looking for boys, girls, or both? Yellow users are then asked to take and upload a selfie and share their location with the app. Once a user is signed up, you are taught to swipe right if you like a profile, swipe left to pass a profile, or tap on the profile to see other pictures of that user. This is exactly how Tinder works, which is an adult dating website. If you swipe right on a profile and they swipe right on yours, then you become a match and can chat or share Instagram and Snapchat usernames. CBS says Tinder for Teens is now a thing. Your kids can literally swipe right for an easy hookup to share nude photos or worse. So we decided to take a closer look at the app called Yellow. Parents will not like it, but predators will. And the Telegraph says Yellow's settings that enable adults to view children also creates an opportunity for sexual predators to target young people. Why should parents care? Well, although students must be 13 or older to use Yellow, the app will change your age and default to a birth date that is 13 or older if you enter a birth date that is less than 13 years old when registering. The Yellow app integrates with Instagram and Snapchat, encouraging other users to connect with your student on those platforms. Also, Yellow markets itself as a way to make friends, even though it's mostly used as a dating app. And this can be confusing for teens and tweens who are just getting access to Instagram and Snapchat and are really kind of new to online and digital safety. Also, the app doesn't work unless users give it access to their location. In addition, your hometown and age are displayed with your username throughout the app. This broadcasts your location even more. And Yellow makes it easy for predators to pose as younger students and get access to other users' personal Snapchat and Instagram accounts. What can parents do? Well, if your teen is using the Yellow app, have a discussion with them about the dangers of this app and urge them to delete it and maybe get one of the apps in our green zone. Explain to your child that sharing their information with strangers online is never safe. Be aware of all the app icons your student has on their phone and research the icons you don't know to become familiar with them. If your student is on Snapchat or Instagram, follow their accounts, but consider not engaging with their content so that they don't see that you're getting in their way, but rather you're just aware of what's going on.
So now you understand why that's probably one of the scariest apps. Did you pick up that when you put your age in under 13, it changes it to 13? And the reason that they change it to 13, I'll go into in a second, but one of the apps that I want to touch base with next is one that's been around for a long time. Most people that have been around on social media or anything like that would probably know what this is just by looking at it. If you know what it is, you can yell it out or say it. Anybody have an idea? Okay. It's called the Calculate% app. It's an app that's been around for several years. It's been available and there's multiple different versions of it. But what do you think? First of all, it's just a calculator to most people when they look at it, but how old do you think you have to be to download a calculator app? 4+. To kind of lean into this, essentially what this app does is it allows you to hide videos and photos by simply locking the app. The app actually allows you to open it up with a set number and digits that you enter into the actual calculator, which then opens up a place that's called a vault, where your kids can actually hide videos, pictures, text messages, and other things.
What is the Calculator app? The Private Photo Calculator app is designed to help students hide photos and videos behind an innocent-looking calculator app. This application looks like a calculator, but entering a passcode opens a private area. All files are securely stored in the app and cannot be viewed in the default iPhone camera roll. How does the Private Photo Calculator app work? Well, the Calculator app's icon looks similar to other calculator apps. However, in the iTunes store, the app is slightly different. In the upper right, as you can see, the app logo in the iTunes Store has a little bit of red to it in the bottom right. But once it appears on your student's phone, it has a green quadrant in the lower right, as you can see the icon shown on your device. When you open the app, it looks like a regular calculator. But to access the secret photos, you need to type a period, then a 4-digit passcode, and then a period again. The calculator app allows you to store photos and videos, and only the person that knows the passcode can access the secret pictures. The calculator app allows you to take pictures using the app, or you can select photos to hide from your existing pictures in your camera roll. Pictures can also be shared via email. If you buy a full version for 99 cents, you unlock even more features, including recording the intruder that unlocks the app with the photo and GPS if they enter in the wrong passcode. There are thousands of other secret apps also, similar to this calculator app. I want to show you how to find other secret apps on your student's phone. First, get your student's phone. Next, visit the App Store using that blue logo that you see right there. Next, type in the word secret or the word calculator or any other app name in the top of the App Store. As you scroll through, if you see the word open, then your student has this app. If you see the word get, then your student doesn't have this app and it's asking them to download it. If you see a cloud logo, it means that your student used to have this app in the past, they have deleted it. Let me show you on the far right how this works. We opened up the App Store and we typed in the word calculator in the top. 16,484 results came up. With a quick scroll, we saw the private photo calculator app. Do you notice how it says the word open to the right of it? That means this student has already downloaded it and now it is ready to be opened from within there. But look down below it. The next Calc Made Easy free app says the word get next to it. Therefore, it has not already been downloaded. Now, if you type in the word secret there, also, you can see lots of different secret apps. And as you scroll through it, if you see a cloud next to it, as you can see next to Whisper, you'll notice that this student has already downloaded it, has deleted it, and now it's saying you can download it easily again by clicking the cloud logo. What can parents do to keep their kids safe on the calculator app? We recommend you encourage your kids to delete this app. Please remind your kids that everything eventually is going to be public. Have a dialogue with your kids about sexting and sending inappropriate photos to others. And explain to your kids that they should be careful with sharing their photos with anyone, as they can always be forwarded and shared.
Does that surprise anybody? Anybody had not heard of that app before? Okay, that actually surprised me because it's actually been popular. It's been around actually since the iPhone was launched, so 7-8 years ago. Android has a similar app, same exact thing. It's just a little more difficult to determine whether or not it's been downloaded before because they don't give you the ability to see a get or a cloud or anything like that, so you kind of determine whether or not it's on the device itself. The benefit to this is that you can actually go in and see if it's been downloaded and deleted. The other thing that you can do as well is every single phone, I don't care if it's an Android phone, an iPhone, or a Microsoft phone, has a built-in calculator. So if you see anything other than the calculator that's built into it, you know it's probably being used for something else, because unless it's a TI, Texas Instrument one that they've downloaded that's used for colleges, universities, or for high school students, it's something that you should not have on the app, or on the device itself. One of the things you're going to notice about all of the apps that are involving social media is they require you to be 13 plus. There's a law that was passed in 2000 called the COBA Act. What the COBA Act means that if you actually store data or information on the individual using that app or device, you're required to have a EULA agreement with the actual user of that and get some type of parental authorization prior to installing it if they're under the age of 13. Now do you understand why yellow makes you 13? Because the reason it wants to make you 13 is they can get around this feature. That gives them the ability to collect data information because that's what they sell, that's how they make their money. They don't make money by giving away free apps. They don't. Yellow is based out of China, but it's real difficult to close apps. Musical.ly is based out of China as well, so you have to go through other loopholes to get things to be closed because you're dealing with international laws versus laws of the United States, so you run into some of those issues. But the COBA Act is supposed to be there to protect your child under the age of 13. That's the reason it's there. because they're not supposed to be gathering information on them. One of the disturbing apps that I just saw yesterday that I actually kind of chuckled when I saw it was Facebook is releasing a Facebook Messenger app for kids under 13. And I laughed because they think it's going to be this great thing where you're going to be able to take care of your kids and be able to see what they're doing. The one thing that you don't realize is the way that this new Facebook Messenger app for kids is set up, it's set up under your account. So by putting it in your account, you're the one that's actually authorizing them to install the app. You're then going to authenticate who communicates with them on that app. But by installing the app and putting it under your user account, you've waived your rights to the 13-year-old COPA Act because you're the one installing it in their account. So that's how Facebook is getting around COPA on that as well. And that's not readily available when you read the EULA license. That's the little legalese that's in there. You have to really look for it. It's in the last paragraph, is that you knowingly are installing an app that you waive your rights to COPA. One of the other things I talked about was green zone apps. When I talk about green zone apps, I consider them green, gray, and red. Green would be ones that you can monitor and kind of keep control of, and you have an idea of what they are and where they're going with that app, your child that is. Some of the apps that I consider green apps are ones that will be carried forward as your student gets older. And I take this to point because when your child starts going and going to college or applying for a job, most of what's considered headhunters that are looking for individuals that go to work for, jobs after college do background checks. They check everything. And one of the things that I think is important is to make sure that your kids also understand that they're building a digital footprint moving forward as they go through college and into careers. A lot of Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. That's what most colleges and most employers look at as far as for backgrounds. YouTube is big because a lot of kids set up YouTube videos and make YouTube videos. That's just the way that it is. A lot of kids that are out there, most parents don't even know that their kids have YouTube accounts and have YouTube channels where they record themselves and upload them. So one of the conversations I always tell everybody to have with your kids is also the social media aspect is important, but also having a long-term digital footprint. Because as you navigate through this stuff and you're trying to be the best parent that you're possibly trying to be because of just being overwhelmed by all this, you're just trying to take care of the now, which is important to you right now. But there is such a big thing for future when it comes to this digital footprint and just being good stewards when they're on the internet. Just one particular post isn't going to actually be something, but if you have repetitive posts, things that are out there that employer or that college sees, when you have multiple applicants to college or multiple applicants for a job, they're going to look at every aspect of your background, and that will be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And the only reason I know that is I have a relative that's a headhunter, and they say that they look at it exclusively. And if you think Facebook is private, as a developer, you pay $5,000. Every part of your account is viewable. Whether you have a private setting on it or not, it's viewable. That's where Facebook makes billions of dollars, is by developers paying them money and getting access to those accounts to actually make decisions that they don't even know, the student or you don't even know they're making, because they're using that information against your child to figure out if they're going to be able to go to that college or university or get that job. So it's something just to keep in mind when I talk about Green Zone. And you'll notice one of the things on there, anybody ever heard of Finstagram? Finstagram is basically your kid's real account. And I'll say that lightly. I'll say it again. Finstagram is your child's real account. Most kids now have multiple Facebook, if they use Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and they're called Finstas. It's not a separate app. Some people have asked me, is it a separate app? It's not a separate app. What it is essentially is you have one Facebook account that you say, yes, Mom, yes, Dad, come on in and look and see what I'm doing. That's a large account. That's usually going to have multiple followers. A Finsta account is more so for smaller groups. And when I say that, it's usually in the double digits. It's not going to be over 100, but it's usually going to be anywhere from like 10 to 25. That demographic of Finstagram, the reason they're setting that account up is for unflattering photos and things that they would deem that wouldn't be appropriate to put on their normal Instagram account. And they invite people into those Finsta accounts, and then they de-invite people into those Finsta accounts. So just keep that in mind, that you can have an Instagram account of your child's, and it might look perfect. It might not be the only Facebook or Instagram account that they have. Just keep that in mind, that that does happen. And I actually just started learning about Finsta accounts in the last couple of months because I had a friend bring it up to me that one of his other daughters told him that his daughter had another Finsta account. And he said, "What's a Finsta account?" He came to me and I said, "I don't know, but let me find out." And it's scary, again, because all of these things are constantly evolving. And I wouldn't call it a Finsta account, I just would call it a separate account. But these kids are using it to the point where they have a name for it now. So it's actually kind of an important thing to kind of keep an eye on. Snapchat is king. I'll show you the demographics here as far as what used to be popular, and it's incredible to see growth in apps and how fast they fall off. One of the things you'll notice on Snapchat is in the spring of 2015, it was on 11% of high schoolers' phones. 11%. By fall of 2017, it's on 47% of phones. And if you look, somebody had to lose in order for them to gain. The biggest losses were obviously Facebook and Twitter, but Instagram has been very unstable as well as far as that goes too. But that's just to give you an idea how fast a trend of an application can change overnight, in a month, in a year. They constantly are evolving, and what I go over with you tonight will be different a year from now. One thing that I bring up quite a bit is, according to a Pew study that we researched in 2016, 87% of teenagers between the ages of 13 and 17 had smartphones and tablets. That number now is pushing 94% in 2017. And when I say teenagers, keep in mind, a lot of those, probably close to 40 to 45%, are under the age of 12. And I'll repeat that, under the age of 12. Of that 87% back in 2016, 85% of those kids that had those devices had the password to install and uninstall apps and do what they want to do on that app. Because after all, kids are tech support, right? It's one of the things we find out is every time we have a problem, we take it to our kids. Well, the problem with that, as you can imagine, is if they have the password for the device, they also probably have the password for the restrictions. And again, restrictions are not going to solve everything. And I say that because restrictions are great when the kids are smaller, and as they get older, you slowly release those restrictions. But if you just go to a kid's 16-year-old phone, grab it, and put a restriction on it and break things, it's not going to turn out good. So one thing I always emphasize is start young. Because the biggest thing is if you start younger, they don't know what they're missing. I've got a 5th grader and a freshman. My freshman has always had restrictions. I've had friends of hers say, "Why can't she download this? Why can't she do this? Why can't she do that?" I don't let it. I review it. I take a look at it. She brings me whatever app she wants to download, and I look at it. Once I look at it, get some information on it, then I make a decision. And again, because being in technology, I've been in technology forever, that phone, when she received it, when she was 12 and a half, 13, had every single restriction that I could possibly turn on. Whether it be surfing the internet, whether it be installing an app, deleting an app, doing an in-app purchase, my daughter was none the wiser. My 6th grader, my 5th grader, same situation. He currently has all the restrictions in place. My daughter just this year just had her browsing capability brought on to her iPhone, because after talking to other parents, they say, "Oh yeah, freshmen use their phones, browsing the internet when they're at school." So I went ahead and I gave her, the leeway as far as that goes. But if your kids are the ones running the devices in your house and they know all the passwords, it's going to be near impossible for you to keep control of what they're doing. Helping teens to become good stewards and safe and smart. Biggest thing is establishing rules for when they are allowed to use smartphones and tablets, what websites they can visit, and what apps they can download. I know that's a lot to do as a parent because you're going to get resistance no matter what you do. But it's easier the younger that you target these children in regards to putting controls in place. If you try this now and your teenagers are 16 and 17, this won't happen. That's just the way that they are. And in some cases, and I just had this happen to a good friend, those kids have jobs. What they do is they go buy an iPod Touch, set up their own account, set up their own information, set up their own app store, and download everything they want. It's just simple. They've got the money and it's cheap and affordable for them to do it. Understand the app's purpose before your child downloads it. Who are the users? What type of privacy settings are available is important. Remind your child that anything they send from their device can easily be saved, forwarded, and shared. Talk to your children about the possible consequences of sending and forwarding sexually explicit and provocative images or text messages. And as a parent, when you're shopping for a device, look to see what settings are on it. Look to see what restrictions are available. iPhone and Android, I talk a lot about iPhone. It's not that I like iPhone more than I do Android, but iPhone has a little easier accommodation for restrictions and the ability to lock things down. And Android's just a little more complicated, and how you go about doing it makes it a little more difficult for you to do it. Discussions about smartphones and tablet use and habits. What do you use the phone and tablet for the most? Can you show me a couple of your favorite apps? Believe it or not, sitting down with my kids and finding out what they're doing on apps, even though I kind of do a little bit of research on them, those apps can change. My son, who again is in 5th grade, has an app on his device, and he was playing it, and he came up to me and he said, "Look, I can chat with people now." Didn't used to exist when I installed the app. So again, I had to look, and he brought it to my attention. He was able to chat with other people on that. So just because the app looked good when you actually looked at it originally, keep in mind these apps and these developers are constantly changing these apps to make them more user-friendly to the kids and kind of get their hooks into them to keep them on that screen time. Do you know anyone that you've that have contacts in your phone or tablets of different apps? The big thing is a lot of times kids end up getting contacts in their apps that they don't know who they are. It happens quite a bit. So I tell everybody as parents-wise to go through your child's device every now and then, look through the contacts. What's funny for me is I'll grab my daughter's phone and look through the contacts. Probably none of my daughter's friends have names. They're emojis, they're different nicknames, they're all kinds of other things but their names. So I'll literally go to her and say, okay, this is a phone number, who is this? This is a phone number, who is this? This is an email address, who is this? And again, I'm not saying this is easy. This is a full-time job just like parenting and anything else. What would you do if someone sent you a text or picture that was inappropriate? And do you have or do you understand how to turn off GPS and privacy settings on the app? Again, most kids that are under the age of 13 and 14, the whole COPA Act falls into place again. They're not going to understand how to turn off GPS. They're not going to understand what the settings are for privacy. They have one intent, playing a game, playing that app. That's all they want to do is just play that game and play that app. So their best friend in the world is next, 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 because they read nothing. So one of my favorite sayings that I use at my house, and my kids know it very well, is if you're going to post something on social media, and if you can't yell it out the front door with me standing next to you, ask yourself really quick, should I be posting it? Because once it's out there, it's out there. Having a conversation with somebody face to face, it's one-on-one. It's not something that's going to continue to spread like wildfire. So I always reiterate, and this is my easy intake on that, is just basically saying, hey, if you can't yell it out the front door with your family standing next to you, don't post it. Because if you're embarrassed to post it in front of me, then you're probably going to be embarrassed once you actually post it and aren't able to bring it back. One of the things that I also bring up, because I've had this said to me by several teens that I've talked to about this, is always remember that common sense to us sometimes doesn't trickle down to our kids, more so than not. And it's just simply they just don't know how to understand or just look at long-term consequences. So before you hand a smartphone to one of your kids or anything, just make sure they understand about cyberbullying, geolocating, the word privacy, inappropriate content, sexting, and those things. Because again, if they don't know what the words mean, how are they going to come to you and say this is happening? Because again, if they don't know, they just don't know. There's nothing else they can do. You might see something later on and say, why didn't you tell me about this? I've had parents say their kids literally didn't know, hey, I didn't know that was sexting. I just thought it was an inappropriate picture that I didn't look at and I deleted it. But again, those are things you just have to keep in mind. And I'll start off by saying this, and I've reiterated it before. Please understand that contracts, smartphone contracts, tablet contracts are not for everybody, but it's a starting point. You've got to start somewhere with your kids, having communication, having an open dialect with them. Because if you don't have that open conversation with them and just that they understand that you're not doing things to make their life hard, that you're not trying to separate them from friends, that you're doing it because you're concerned about them and you want to make sure you're protecting them. Just like when we were younger, I always tell people, I'm 46 years old, look both ways before you cross the street. If somebody knocks on the door, don't answer unless you know who it is. Stuff like that. It's really difficult for kids nowadays to understand their limits without you setting limits for them and explaining them in detail. And I'll say that again, in detail. Teen contracts are designed to create an open line of communication between you and your teens regarding their cell phone. Again, the goal that you're always supposed to be going towards is just that they can coexist in technology but not be ruled by it. They need to understand it, take a break from it. That's more than anything is just setting the phone down or getting away from it, which most kids have a hard time doing. You should have a teen cell phone contract to help spark the mission critical, which is cell phone responsibility and discussion. And I'll say that again, cell phone responsibility and discussion. Because more so than anything, when I talk to kids about not having guidelines, it's simply most of them will tell me, I never had any rules set in front of me. I never had anybody tell me about it. In passing, you might say, hey, don't do this, hey, don't do that. Cell phone contracts or tablet contracts, you can basically spell everything out. And if there's ever a problem or a question, you can go back to that contract and look at it and just explain to them that they made a commitment when you gave them that device that they're going to abide by these things that you've set forth. And again, as they get older, it becomes much more difficult. If you grabbed one of the cell phone contracts when you actually, came in this evening, that's something that I myself wrote up. It's something that can be changed and altered. The one that I actually sent to the school administration is a PDF. I've got the Word document. I'm probably going to allow them to have that Word document so you can actually change and edit it according to what your child restrictions might be. Because again, every child's going to be different. One of the big things for us is no cell phones at dinner tables. And that's probably the hardest thing for me because I have kids that want to bring their phone up and prop up a movie in front of them while they're eating dinner. And that's not something that I, tolerate. And it's just something that if they bring it to the table, they lose it for a day. I don't even ask. I just grab it and put it away and say, okay, we'll get that tomorrow. So those are some things that I basically always make sure that you want to make sure you reiterate to your kids that this is a contract. It's not a obviously legal binding contract, but you're going through it just to explain to them what you expect of them and what you think that they should be using that device for. And again, communication. Again, this might not work for older kids, but for younger kids, as you migrate through and start releasing restrictions and giving them more freedom, just like you do when they get older. Johnny can go across the street when he's 8, 9 years old, but he can't go around the corner. Same thing, just slowly releasing those restrictions, and you can change your contract as that child gets older. The last thing I'm going to go into is iPhone restrictions. This is going to be kind of a slideshow video, and I don't expect you guys to pull your phones out and just start typing away on your phones, or if you brought your kids' devices to be able to expect you to go through and do this. That sheet of paper that I handed out to you basically goes over some of the restrictions that are simple restrictions. By just turning restrictions on in one area, and if you look at the restriction sheet, I'll just show you really quick. It's just going to settings, general, scrolling down after you get into general. And then going down to restrictions. When you click on restrictions, it's going to ask you to enter a 4-digit code when you click enable restrictions. I tell everybody this 3 times. Write the password down, write the password down, write the password down. Because once the password is entered, you cannot erase that password. The only thing you can do is erase the device. It's the only way you're ever going to get that restriction off that device. So keep that 4-digit code in your head. Don't use your date of birth, the year you were born. Don't use your anniversary. Don't use things that your kids are going to obviously try. One thing that's nice about the restrictions that kids hate on Apple devices, and it started about 2 or 3 years ago, if your child tries to open up restrictions and tries a 4-digit code, it has a number next to it when you go back in to look at it. It tells you how many times they've tried that restriction. Another time for you to open a conversation with your child and say, why are you trying to unlock the restriction? Is there something you need to talk to me about? What type of app are you trying to install? What do we need to talk about? That's the biggest thing. Next part of the restrictions would be allowing specific content. And this only applies to things that are in the Apple App Store, such as movies, music, videos. By default, music, podcast, and news is explicit. So when you go into the iTunes store and you click on music, and this is for any child, you have the clean and the not so clean version that they can download or listen to, the little snippet for 15 seconds. You can also set restrictions on movies. You can set restrictions on other things in there as well, like books. The books one I bring up quite a bit because if you go into the App Store and you go into the actual iBook store, there's actually a setting for explicit sexual content. You'll be surprised what you can actually click on in iBooks and actually download as far as books for free. Some of it you probably wouldn't even download at all ever in your life. And they're available to the kids anytime they want because, again, it's not restricted. And again, this is not taking a lot of things away from your child at this point. You've just taken away things that they could accidentally get into or just find themselves into a situation that they might not understand how to get out of. And it's much, much better just to lock the device and keep them out of that area. And if you have Safari turned off in the first video under the settings, one of the 4 things you can turn off is Safari, which is the browser installing apps, deleting apps, and in-app purchases. You won't need to restrict websites. There's a parental control in there in the websites. You can actually turn on parental controls for adult content, and it will filter a lot of websites. By having the actual browser off, you eliminate having to worry about it at all. But again, going back to the apps we talked about, some of the apps that I listed, those 5 apps, 3 of those you can browse the internet from inside the app. So this is not going to help you if you actually knowingly or the child installs the app and you haven't reviewed it or checked it out. Just keep that in mind. The third, and probably one of the most important areas in restrictions for me personally, is location services. Location services is camera, photos, social media apps. That's where you're going to get in and look to see exactly what has access for your camera. By turning on your camera app while using, if your child takes a photo and they upload that photo, or they email that photo, or they message that photo, the person that gets that picture can send it out multiple places, which we're all well aware of. The scary part about it is if geolocation is turned on, I can simply drag that photo to Google Maps, and I now know where that picture was taken. So if your child has a sleepover, a bunch of kids come over, you're taking a bunch of pictures, and they think it's just harmless fun, by them posting that photo, they now are allowing whoever might see that photo through social media or anything else, and if it's shared a lot of places, or if they update their profile picture, and I'll repeat that, profile picture, their profile picture, if they're on Instagram or Snapchat or those other ones, are available. So somebody could grab that photo and now they know the location where that photo was taken. And it, most of the time, is either going to be at school or at home. So now that predator now has the school that they go to and the home without ever even doing anything except grabbing that photo. That's one of the most important things that I bring up. Also on that same token, and this parents do a lot and it drives me crazy. If you're on vacation, don't post your pictures and use geotagging, because now you've basically let everybody know that you're out of the area of your house. You're basically saying, my house is empty, come rob me. So just keep that in mind. And your kids on social media when you're on vacation, if they're posting social media pics, you might be saying, I'm not going to do that. Your kids post pictures, I'm in Florida. Okay, great. They post that on Instagram. Now every single person that follows them on Instagram knows they're in Florida and nobody's at their house. So just keep that in mind. Again, passing that on to your kids, that it's not only just for their safety, it's also because you have a house that could be robbed because you're giving them the information you're not home. Once you review the apps, the settings, and the services, you can click Don't Allow Changes. Don't Allow Changes allows you to lock those individual settings. So if you, for instance, have a iMessage, FaceTime account, and an email address for your child set up, once those are set up, if you go in and you click Don't Allow Changes, they can't go in and add a new email, add a new FaceTime account, or add a new iMessage account, because you've locked the ability for them to change, modify, or add anything to that actual area of the restrictions. So just keep that in mind as you go through and start talking about these restrictions. Because again, my biggest thing that I try to emphasize more than anything is a lot of these restrictions, you're not really restricting your child, you're just protecting them. That's all you're really doing. You're not taking a lot away, you're taking away little things that they might not even know that you're taking away. And that last video essentially is the allow changes on the accounts. And that was what I was referring to that I previously spoke of, is that once you lock the accounts and you go down and you set don't allow changes, that locks the accounts from being able to be changed. One thing to keep in mind when the geolocation was up, that I failed to kind of go over with you whenever I was going through that, is there's an area in there that actually says, and I have to look here really quick, I apologize, share my location. Share my location is not the same as find my iPhone. Two separate entities, they're on the same page, but they're two separate things. Share my location is if your friends are texting, they actually can just click a little thing off to the side and click share my location, and now the person they're chatting with now knows where they're at. And the kids like it because if, say, they're out the mall or they're out and about, they can actually say, hey, where are you at? All they do is click one button and it gives them a tag with a pen right in it where they're located at. And again, not exactly the best thing in the world for your kids to have, especially if they're 10, 12, 13 years old, to be able to change or modify those settings at all. When you guys walked in, there was a couple letters out there that were written by administration from both Metamora Grade School and Metamora High School. When I actually posted that I was going to try to do some type of conference on social media, I had several administrators reach out to me, called me, texted me, emailed me, asked me if there was a possibility that we could do this at the high school, because they really want to make sure we bring this to the forefront, that children, parents, and administration is educated on what's going on social media. So those are just kind of brief synopsis of where the direction and what the school administration looks for and is doing at our schools. And both Kevin Holdwell, assistant principal, sent me one, as well as Superintendent Marty Payne. The grade schools play a major role in this because they're feeding into the high schools, and so they're setting the groundwork and trying to set that groundwork to educate those children as they're brought up in the social media era and brought into high school. So it's a two-pronged attack, basically, on the side of the grade schools need to really work at it, the high schools really need to work at it, but inevitably the parents need to really work at it. And I say that because, again, you guys are here, sitting here wanting to learn a bit about social media, but I was hoping that I would be the person that's scared today because I'm not a big public speaker and this whole place was going to be full. So I appreciate you guys coming this evening and taking your time and actually sitting in a room and kind of trying to learn a little bit about social media. Again, this is going to be rebroadcast through MTCO and through the high school. It'll be made available later on. So if you have friends, relatives, or anybody that might like to take a look at it, that's going to be available, and they'll let you know that at a later date when that's going to be available. But I do appreciate that you came out this evening on a cold night to sit through a class and just kind of try to learn a little bit about social media. And I truly appreciate that, and I appreciate the administration for allowing me to come this evening to have a venue to talk to you this evening.